We're now going to move into item 7. I will move item 7, and Councillor Casey, as Deputy Chair, can you second this this one? Yep.
Happy
cool.
to second.
Kia ora, my mate. So look, we'll then open it up for discussion, and if we could get our team up in the table, and Rob, what I'll do, or it's Catherine or whoever, if you could just let us know the team that's not only here but also online to assist you. There is also Rob, not Rob, but Mark, there's another chair if you want to sit up there as well. So, Rob, are you going to start off, or Catherine?
I'll say good afternoon, everyone, and
just introduce the team. Also online, please.
So Catherine's got the list of the team, so I'll just hand straight over to Catherine to take you through a very brief presentation and to let you know who the team is.
My name is Catherine Martin. I'm Manager of Work Programs at Community Facilities, and I have here with me to present to you today Taryn Crew, our General Manager, Community Facilities, Rob Keynes, Head of Asset Management and Investment Programming, and Jonathan Hope, our Regional Work Program, alongside Mark Bowater, of course, Head of Park Services. So online today, we have our support team, Mace Ward, General Manager, Park, Sport and Recreation, Scott De Silva, Manager, Regional Parks, Martin Van Jarsveld, Manager, Community Parks and Places, Paul Kleinek, General Manager, Resilient Lands and Coast, and Ross Roberts, Head of Engineering, Resilience. So we're here today regarding the adoption of the Community Facilities Regional Work Programs. And if it's okay, I will proceed with the presentation. So firstly, just a reminder of the regional work programs that are recommended for adoption today. You can see on the slide we have our Regional Renewals and Development Program, which includes regional parks, and as a part of that, farming and holiday places. Holiday parks, Botanic Gardens and Auckland Domain are also part of those renewals and development. We then have our cemeteries program, which is renewals and development also, residential commercial leases, our slips prevention and remediation program, which is a development program, our local parks and sports field development program, which is commonly known as our growth program. And previous years we would have brought to you the coastal renewals program, but that is now, as you may recall, the discussion at the workshop is now being managed by Resilient Land and Coast Department. But we do, as I said, have those staff here if we have any questions. So in terms of decision making for the regional parks and cemeteries budgets, the governing body, or the relevant committee, in this case the PACE committee of course, is the sole decision maker. For the growth and slips budget, there is dual decision making. So the governing body is a decision maker for the budget allocation and the outcome, such as location and scope, while the local board are the decision makers for projects that relate to local parks and assets. That's within the parameters set by the governing body. So as an example, if you take a sports field upgrade that may be approved in the growth program by the governing body, if that sports field is on a local park, it will require the approval of the relevant local board and will be included in their work program. So just a few key points regarding the item today. So this is a 3-year work program, year 1 being approved in full and 2 and 3 in principle. You may also recall that this program is workshopped with the committee, and it was workshopped in February this year. The growth and slips programs were workshopped with local boards in both March and May, and local boards recently approved their local work programs and resolved feedback on the regional programs, and that's included in attachment F to your report. In between the February PACE workshop and finalising these local board work programs, annual budget decisions did require some changes to the growth work program. So given the timing, the revised program could not be included in that local board reporting. However, where possible, the changes were discussed with local boards and feedback resolved. Attachment H includes a copy of the projects that were rephased to meet budget envelopes. Overall, generally, the local board feedback was supportive. of the program. However, there were some requests to retain projects that were phased out of the program due to budget decisions. So the budgets allocated in the regional work programs before you today are outlined on this slide, alongside the anticipated spend for FY22, which is, as says there, is actual plus forecast. Just to give you some context, there are both development budgets for building new assets and renewals budgets for renewing existing assets in these programs. Just a little rundown of some of them. The regional parks budgets include, as you can see there, both development and renewals and remain relatively consistent over the years. The cemeteries budgets increases in later years to address, increases later years to address future potential newly acquired cemetery land, whilst the renewals decreases slightly. In terms of our leases budgets, this is a renewals budget and it's required to meet our legislative obligations by FY24, financial year 24. The SLIPS budget, that's a development budget as said, and years 1 and 2 reflect emergency budget levels that start to recover in the year 3. In terms of growth, or our local parks and sports field development budget, that stays around the $10 million mark and increases in year 3. So it should just be noted here that the next LTP is the opportunity to investigate the appropriate levels of funding across any of these budgets, in particular the outer years. But overall, as you'll see in the total at the bottom, there is a level of consistency between the FY22 spend, that first year of 27 million, and the 25 and 29 million in the next 2 years that are being proposed, with a slight increase in FY25. So the changes in the annual budget impacted a couple of the programs before you today. For clarity, this slide shows you which budgets were reduced, noting that the reduction is only $5 million in year 1 of the program. More specifically, regional development was reduced by $13 million in FY25 and growth was reduced by $5 million in FY23 and 24 and $17 million in 25. In rephasing the growth program to meet budget envelopes, priority was given to projects currently in delivery, so we could carry those on, and those located in LTP investment areas. So this final slide just outlines the development process for these programs just in a more visual way. As mentioned, these programs were workshopped with the PACE Committee in February. The relevant growth and SLIPS programs were workshopped with the local board in March and May. And local boards approved work programs just in June, most recently, and resolved feedback on regional programs. So that brings us to the PACE meeting today, at which we are seeking approval of these regional programs. Any patai?
Thank you, Catherine. Look, I'm just going to go online first to see if there's any of your staff that wish to say anything, and I will apply the 3-second rule, and then I will then ask those that are surrounding you and supporting you. So I'll ask those online. That's done, and those here, Taryn, and particularly yourself. But if there's not, 3-second rule applies. No. So before
Alf.
Yeah.
I've only just managed to get my my stuff functioning.
Yep.
So what is the item on? Because I did have a question about an item.
Yeah. So this is the only item we've got an open agenda. So our staff have just gone through what you would have read. On the agenda. So hold on. Wait, sorry. Can you just hold on? So I'll just explain. So they've just finished, and we're up to part-time now. I've got one already, but if you have any questions, just let me know, and I'll put your name down, Councillor.
Okay. Well, I do have a question. Just when you're ready. Okay.
Okay. Kapai, when I'll go to our list, but I was just going to make a comment first, and to acknowledge our staff. Look, I just want to say thank you, because yes, we'll go to the partai, but knowing that you've gone through the local boards and in particular 19 of 21 you've personally gone through there. Just want to acknowledge that because I won't be making any closing comments because I just wanted to do it up front now. So look, thank you so much to the whole team. And so look, I'm just going to go into Pātai and Councillor Cooper, and then followed by Councillor Walker, and then followed by Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question is just around Waitaka Ranges Local Board and the deferral of the Claiborne Road Reserve. And I can kind of understand the reason for deferral, but I guess given that on that side of the railway tracks, there's virtually nothing for families on that side without having to cross a major road, railway tracks, etc. When you say deferred to the next 3 years, sort of will that then come up to the top of the list, that Claiborne? I know it's very detailed, but I guess I want to advocate for the local board, saying that's the only thing my two local boards were unhappy about.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Councillor. Yes, so the funding proportion of Claiborne Reserve has been deferred out of this program and would currently sit presumptively in FY26. Of course, that needs to be prioritised as we come to do the new program in future. Should be noted the board is funding the initial stages of design, etc., through LDI. So the project could use its LDI fund early, even though the growth money, which will really contribute to the physical works, may indeed not come until the next work program, which will be FY26 at the earliest.
Thank you. Thanks for that, because we don't really hear what our local boards do, but that's really great. Thank you.
Ka pai. Councillor Walker.
Yeah. Hi, Alf. I've just got a question about the item that involves street gardens. I think it is. Just for clarity, does street gardens mean street trees and so on? Street tree planting?
Through you, Mr. Chair. Yes, in this instance, the focus here is on tree pits. So it is the trees in those town centre areas that have the pits around them, and it's ensuring that the infrastructure around those trees is renewed and is safe and adequate to enable the health of the tree and also those pedestrians around the area. I hope that answers the question.
So it isn't street trees as such. Is that captured somewhere separately, or is that part of community facilities?
Kia ora, through the chair. Yes, we've got a separate budget that sits in our arboriculture team that delivers on the street tree planting program, and then we've got additional funding that comes through Vector with the targeted rate funding that also helps to fund that. So that's separate to this program.
And the trees and pits, does that include areas, say in downtown Auckland, where you've got a number of trees and large pits? Are they covered off as part of this?
Thank you, Councillor. So there is a need to address those with health and safety issues first. So we wish to ensure that the pedestrian way is as safe as it possibly can be. There is a reasonable need in this area, and so we will be prioritising based on greatest need at this time.
Sure. So the question I've got is just around the reporting on the health of trees. And the reason I'm raising that is I've made the observation when I travel around the region that there's been a significant death rate in trees that are occupying these pits and the like in parks. And I would imagine it amounts to quite a substantial amount of money. Is there some reporting that occurs on that I could access, some monitoring and management and reporting around that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. Yes, there is. We do have a tree health monitoring program that's run by our arboriculture team. So we can, outside of this meeting, provide that information to you.
Thank you very much. That'd be great. Bye.
Kia ora. Councillor Hill.
Thank you, Councillor Philippine. Just quite a specific question about the Colonial Road, the homes there. There's quite a number of line items. Is it possible, or is it planned to incorporate that into one program of works, or will the repairs and maintenance be done to each house? Sorry, I should go back to
Apologies, Councillor. Could you point out which particular lines you're talking about?
Sorry.
Or is it
It's on the lease.
renew residential, or the residential lease program?
Yeah, so they're residential lease homes, but they're actually heritage scheduled cottages. They're all split into different budgets, but they're in the same area. Are we thinking of doing that as one project?
It could very well be delivered as one package, yes. We would look for the most efficient way to procure the items to get them delivered at lowest cost possible. So we can look at that. Thank you for raising that.
And the other question is, because of their heritage value, we have had complaints in the past over just maybe some alterations or things that have been upgraded, maybe not to the expectation we'd put on the public with heritage buildings, if you know what I mean. So I want to understand if there's going to be that sort of expertise involved in any sort of upgrades or fixtures and fittings and things that change the look or feeling.
Thank you, Councillor. Perhaps we can bring you a little bit more information about those specific projects. The budget in that particular area is relatively limited, so we have ensured that we're focusing on the healthy homes aspect, which of course at times does need to look at the external part of the building and any heritage items inside or outside. So yeah, we can come back to you with a little more.
Yeah, probably too specific. I'd love to have a bit of an update separate to this. Thank you very much.
Kia ora, Councillor Hills. Kei tū matua kake.
Tēnā koe he te rangatira, Alf. Just a couple of, in general, matua, I'm very supportive of the recommendations. The questions really just further clarity around, which might help me say yes later on, is around the Māori impact statement and how it advises that Māori values were considered in the development of the relevant work programs. Can the staff just outline, well, can they articulate what values were directed the proposed work programs?
Kia ora, thank you for the question. Many of our programs are worked together with our regional parks teams, and of course under the Regional Parks Management Plan, which we of course have a proposed one currently. I think we're at the moment. The most detailed time that we look at the projects is once we have them there and we need to actually look at them and talk to mana whenua in terms of looking at those particular values. So yeah, I think that is the best time, but someone else may wish to add to the question.
I thought I read the values were considered in the report. In the development of the relevant work programs. I'd just be interested in, because I think generally they should apply across all.
Certainly it's considerations that are undertaken when putting the program together, absolutely. And I think those can come to fruition even more in the detail of each project.
Okay, but you're not able to articulate which ones were in particular in the development here or of the work program?
I can come back to you when I look in more detail. I'm sorry, the large number of projects on the program. Apologies.
Okay, my second question, if I may, through the chair.
Kapai.
It's just in regards to opportunities for procurement of Māori suppliers. Is that still hot on the program?
Thank you for the question. I'll take that one. Yes, so we're working really closely with our procurement team around those supply diversity targets and looking at how we procure. We have actually, and we're hoping through the final annual report, we'll be able to give some updates on how we've improved in that area and trialling some additional pilot ways of how we bring Māori business into council process per se. We've had a lot of feedback that it can be quite difficult, and so we've just finished off a pilot which is around delivering the marae infrastructure program that we're looking to use across the rest of the development program that has been quite successful. That is about breaking down the barriers, so all the paperwork, all the stuff has been conducted through interviews and it has had really, really good outcome. So yes, there's still a focus on that. We're still focused on hitting our targets and improving that business with Māori and Pacifica.
Look, thank you. Really appreciate the answer there, and it's just something that's pretty close to my heart, and not just with procurement through iwi as well. There's mātāwaka that is the majority in Tamaki that would provide that opportunity. And I want to big ups through the chair to our cemetery crew who employ a lot of Māori. So tēnā koe. Thank you. Ka pai. I'll be supporting the recommendation.
Ka pai, matua. Catherine, when you get that information back to Matua Kake, can you CC myself and the Deputy Chair in, please?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Kia ora. Councillor Stewart and then Matua Wilcox.
Oh, thank you. Just on the trees and parks and reserves, do we have? Is there anything we can do about the oleander trees that we have on parks and reserves and roadways? And why I'm asking that, I'm not sure if you're aware, but oleanders are highly toxic, and especially to dogs and cats and even for humans, it can be lethal. And even a single leaf digested by a child could kill them. So I have noticed that we have got quite a few of them in some of our parks and reserves, and I just wondered if there's anything we can do about it.
Through you, Mr. Chair, Mark Bowood here. I can help answer that one. Over the last couple of decades, there has been quite a concerted effort to remove oleander trees, particularly from street verges. So I imagine that as part of any park renewal upgrade program, we're assessing where we can continue to remove undesirable species like oleander. But if there was any specific sites that you're concerned about, Councillor, it may be really helpful to forward those through so that our teams can have a look at it.
I'll do that. I have noticed we've had some staff pruning some around the Pigeon Mountain area and not wearing protective clothing. A little bit concerned about that.
Kia ora, thank you for bringing that to the attention, Councillor Stewart. If there's no further, I'll go to Matua Wilcox.
Kia ora. Kia ora, thank you. Sorry, just having a bit of button issues. My compatriot Tony asked mostly the questions that I wanted to ask, so that's filled that in for me. I just want to know what's the decision-making process for when we will include iwi and when we won't? It's not clear to me in the Māori impact statement. It's just it says will be considered. Can I have some reply to that?
Kia ora, thank you for the question. Through the chair, so most of, as Catherine explained, most of the engagement happens through the design and implementation of that project, and then also around any decisions that are being made and taken to the local board with respect to the project. So once the program is adopted and we start working closer with the local boards around the design of those projects, then part of that engagement is with our iwi and our Mana Whenua Forum as well. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Ka pai, got two more, and then if there's no further, I'll go to whakaaro. So there'd be Councillor Coombe and then Councillor Hills.
Tēnā koe e te hia mana. Kia ora koutou, and thank you for bringing this to us. I always can't, well, I can't help but zero in on Auckland Domain, being on the Domain Committee, and item, it's 149 at page 39 of the agenda, is talking about the pathway connections will be completed by June 2022. And so I was just wanting to understand, how do we keep this as a living document that is up to date? Because as far as I know, they haven't even started. So it would be good to know where that's at.
Thank you, Councillor Coombe, and apologies, we noted that small typo this morning and have subsequently been ready to update it. As the budget for that project, I understand the Local Board Transport Capital Fund has been received from Auckland Council, received from Auckland Transport to Auckland Council. It has meant that the project, which we had hoped would have a little more spend last year, has now been moved slightly forward to the next year, and we will update those financial years in the activity description to reflect that. And those dates will reflect the budget availability, which is FY23. So apologies for that typo.
But have physical works actually started? In the column it says nothing has...
No physical works have started, okay. No. So it's just in the early design stages. It was waiting, funding being made available following a hold of that funding during the emergency budgets.
Thank you. And if I may, Mr Chair, just a supplementary to that. Also, just thinking about the domain, I think I asked this part-I through the workshops around, we've got the renewal there of the Watson bequest, and it's not possible to access that bequest by any means if you have any, if you rely on wheels in any way. You can't get there safely if you're a pedestrian, and I guess it goes to the whole bigger picture that we have a premier park that you cannot walk around or cycle around, and is very inaccessible unless you're driving around it. So I just would really like to know where that bit of work got to in terms of thinking about accessibility.
Thank you, Councillor Coombe. Good question, and I do recall your query in the workshop regarding an accessibility audit being completed. I've spoken with Martin van Jaarsveld, who is probably online today, and he has confirmed prior to this meeting that there will be an operational work program item as part of the Domain Committee, I understand, to look at accessibility through this financial year we are in now. So that should look at the highest priorities in terms of accessibility for the domain. So answer the question.
Thank you for that update.
Through the chair. Through the chair, if I may, Martin van Jaarsveld here. Yeah, I can confirm that we are in the process of appointing a consultant to undertake an accessibility audit for the domain. So that work should start in August this year.
Ka pai, that's great news, and I mean I was aware that was going to happen, so it's great to get that update, Matua, and bring it to the attention of this committee as well.
Ka pai, ngā mihi. Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, thank you, Chair. This may be not connected, but I'm just seeing if it is. The discussion on the capital works on tree pits, with all the extra budget we put into street trees and urban ahiri and the climate action targeted rate, but also the climate initiatives last year, are we trying to combine or build on those budgets, or is that separate to this work, or is there a program of work to sort of ensure that all comes together?
Thank you, Councillor. Others may wish to add. I see that work as potentially separate. This is particularly just a renewals aspect for existing situations rather than the development budgets for new, that particular one line.
Okay. Thank you.
Kia ora. Look, I've got no further. Councillor Walker, your last one, and then we'll move to whakaaro, please.
Sure. So, a couple of quick questions. One for Martin. Martin, I'd be interested in more information around the accessibility audit. If you could just touch base with me after the meeting when it's convenient. And the other question I've got just goes to community leases and what oversight we have in terms of monitoring and management. And the reason I'm asking for that is I know there are various community leases that I've been made aware of that have been delayed, sometimes for considerable periods of time. So is there any reporting on community leases at a high level? In some respects, they're a little bit like resource consents and the like in terms of reporting around timeframes. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Just to confirm, and apologies if there has been any confusion, the leases program here in front of you today is the commercial and residential leases program. Those are properties which are non-service and receive revenue for council. They don't relate to the community leases portfolio, which sits with each individual local board. So any reporting for those community leases would be via local board reporting.
Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Kapai, and Councillor Darby's your partai.
Thank you, Chair. I thought I'd just ask it now, Chair, so thank you for the opportunity. And thanks, team. Probably two questions. The team will be aware that on Devonport Domain there are some 3 villas and one of them can't be occupied. That is, somebody can't live in it because it's not habitable. Look, I've looked through all the attachments and maybe it's not ID'd uniquely and it's within something else. Is there budget to address the maintenance deficit on the Devonport Domain villas or villa? That's my first question. I'll get the second one out, Chair. Second one is there's quite a lot of mention of tree planting here, tree planting budgets, which is fantastic. Can you outline what the audit procedure is for identifying trees that fail? This last summer, I'm very aware of a lot of trees that failed that have not been picked up in the next planting season. So I'd like to get a sense of how we track what we have planted, which we do big press releases about. When they fail, how the contract or the contractor is audited to identify replants. Two questions there, Chair. Thank you.
Kapai.
Kia ora, thank you very much for the questions, Councillor Darby. The first one, in terms of Devonport Domain, we think you are referring to, sorry, we'll just bring it up, 52 King Edward Parade, the new residential lease building. That property does need some consideration. I understand there's been discussions about future use, that it's currently vacant at the moment, and as such, the renewal of that has been rephased out a little bit in order to have those discussions and determine its future service use. I don't know if anyone wishes to add to that, but that's the situation. So our leases team are working on that at the moment. Does that answer the question on that one? We could get an update.
I won't take the time here, Chair. If you could come back to me and let me know, when it's going to occur. That's fine, Chair. And the second question.
Thank you. Absolutely, we'll bring an update. In terms of the tree planting budget, Taryn may wish to add. I was going to suggest our arboricultural team come back with some information, but.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Darby. Yeah, I think we probably should bring back a paper that outlines a little bit more around, Claudia's giving me the finger, around the tree maintenance, the monitoring and how we follow up with that planting. It is all managed through the operational budgets, and the accountability sits with the arboriculture team to instruct the contractor around the replacement of the trees and what's suitable for those areas. So I know there has been a bit of a delay, and I think that's probably something we should bring back to the committee.
So, Councillor Darby, I just...
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor Darby, I'll just get our Director, Claudia, to also make some comments. Kia ora, Claudia.
Thank you very much. So just to confirm that there is a tree risk management report that's coming to PACE Committee in August, and so that would also be an opportunity to discuss some of these items. Thank you.
Ka pai, Chris. Councillor Darby.
Absolutely, you've got it under control, Chair, which is good. Thank you.
Kia ora na. Look, there's no further pātai on the list. So look, just to our team, again, I've acknowledged the fact that with all the mahi that's due, not only in front of us, but also online. So look, I'm going to open it up for whakaaro, which means you will be going back to your safe space. and so nothing will be directed at you and there will be no response required. So look, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa. Thank you so much. So look, I'm just going to go in whakaaro, if there's any. I'm looking at the chat bar, 3 seconds. Councillor Cooper first. Kia ora.
Thank you. It's just a commentary, because all this work is our core bread and butter. It's what our community expect. They're always assessing and looking, and often I don't think our staff get enough kudos. I mean, a lot of the people here working in this report are doing all the enabling and getting it all passed and designed and everything. But I just want to thank everybody, because this is our front door, really. This is our window. And it reflects on our whole region. When things look good and done well, that's just great. And I just want to say I appreciate what you do, because it's usually pretty thankless. Thank you.
Definitely tautoko your kōrero, your whakaaro, Councillor Cooper. 3-second rule. Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, Chair, and I think I also want to just echo Councillor Cooper's comments. I think that despite the challenges of the last 3 years and the effects on our budgets, effects on supply chain, effects on cost escalation, we're still seeing a massive number of projects roll out for our communities. You do notice the difference when things are being upgraded, when new seats are put in, when the field, sports fields are still getting sand slit, the regional parks are getting extra benefits to them. We're getting all sorts of massive projects and the smaller ones. And it's funny how often the small projects are noticed by people, and it might be, carpet in a building or a new seat or a new bin. Sometimes people notice that more than maybe the big, massive several $1 million projects. There's also huge funding that we don't really celebrate. We don't often celebrate the renewals. We often have the ribbon cuttings for a new library or community centre, but significant amounts of ratepayer money goes into upgrading things that we kind of tick off and move on, but we don't say this is a fantastic new playground. If you're at home and you renovate your whole bathroom or you renovate your house, you're celebrating that as a brand new project. But unfortunately, we get sometimes caught up in just the brand new shiny things, when actually the investment going into renewing our local facilities and regional facilities is pretty phenomenal, and that is growing. As you can see, there is some tough headwinds at the moment, but I just want to say that it's fantastic work, and people do notice and do mention the difference. And I think people expect it, but I think everyone also knows that it can't happen everywhere at once, all of the time, even though we would like to. So just thank you for that.
I think to close it off, as I said earlier, I won't be closing the debate. I'll let Matua Kake close the debate. Tēnā koe te ho.
Oh, tēnā koe te rangatira. Yeah, my comment is really, I think this is an area that we've got it right, actually. Where we at a Auckland wide, or what I call mothership, Starship Enterprise kind of level, that we've got it right in terms of enabling the local boards to take the nitty-gritty or the decisions. So I just want to acknowledge the staff, but also acknowledge the council for how they've got this balance right. Essentially enabled, but locally making the decisions around the nitty-gritty. So Ngā mihi atu kia koutou. Kia ora.
Tēnā koe matua. Look, there's no further. So I'm going to, and with pleasure, put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
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 Against? Carried. Kia ora. We move now to a procedural motion. That is to exclude the public for our confidential item. So I will move that. Second, Councillor Hills. Kia ora. So I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against?
Aye.
Carried. To our team at the back, ngā mihi.